The sun was sinking low, turning the sky a bruised shade of orange when Eli Barrett rode his tired gelding through the quiet valley. He had no idea that the path he took that evening would change his entire life. Eli was known across the region as the poor rancher whose land grew more dust than grass, and whose luck had run drier than the summer creek. His boots were worn through at the toes, and his coat had been patched so many times it looked like a quilt. But despite how little he owned, there was not a soul in the West who doubted the size of his heart. That was why he stopped the moment. He saw two figures standing outside an abandoned trading post, their silhouettes trembling against the dying light. As he rode closer, the shapes became clearer. Two young Apache women, twins, nearly identical in face yet different in expression. One stood tall and defiant, jaw tight, her eyes sharp with fire. The other was quieter, her posture guarded, her hands clasped as though holding herself together. Dust covered their clothes and streaked their cheeks, but even exhaustion could not hide the fear in their eyes. Eli dismounted slowly, not wanting to startle them, and offered his water canteen without speaking a word. They accepted it with shaking hands, and the relief on their faces told Eli they had been running for a long time. He asked gently if they had somewhere safe to go. The twins exchanged a glance, an entire conversation, passing between them in a single heartbeat. Their silence was enough to tell him the truth. They had nowhere. Before Eli could ask more, the sound of hooves thundered across the ridge. 6 armed riders appeared, hard-faced men from a notorious outlaw band. They shouted that the twins belonged to them, that an old agreement had promised the girls as brides to their leader, and that the tribe had violated the deal. Eli stepped forward, unarmed yet unwavering. The outlaws laughed at him, calling him a worthless nobody, a poor rancher with nothing but a dying horse and a shabby coat. But Eli didn't move. Something in the girl's eyes, fear mixed with desperate hope, made him stand taller than he ever had. The outlaws finally rode off, promising they would return before dawn. That night, under the cold stars, the twins told him everything. Their father had been forced years ago into a deal that traded their futures for peace. They had escaped to avoid the forced match. Eli listened quietly, then told them softly that if a name was all they needed to be protected, they could have his, not out of obligation, but because nobody deserved to be claimed like property. The twins stared at him, stunned that a man with nothing was willing to give them everything he had, his honor. Word spread across the plains with the speed of wildfire that Eli Barrett, the rancher, who barely had 2 coins to his name, had taken the Apache twins under his protection. People gossiped in saloons, at water troughs, at campfires. Some laughed, saying a man so poor had no right to involve himself in tribal matters. Others whispered that he was playing hero for attention. But those who truly knew Eli understood he had never cared about glory. He simply couldn't walk past injustice, even if it cost him everything he had. The twins rode with him toward the neutral council grounds the next morning, their horses moving cautiously through the golden grasslands. Nayeli kept scanning the hills with sharp, fiery eyes, while Naya rode quietly beside Eli, her calm presence balancing her sister's tension. Eli noticed the unease in both women, but said nothing, choosing instead to offer a steady, reassuring presence. Along the way, the twins watched him, the way he didn't boast, didn't seek gratitude, didn't flinch even though he was outmatched and outnumbered by the men chasing them. A poor rancher was not supposed to challenge an outlaw band, but Eli was doing exactly that. By the time they reached the council grounds, a crowd had already gathered. The tribal elders sat in a wide circle, feathers and beads catching the morning light. Settlers stood off to the side, murmuring among themselves, and the outlaw band waited near their horses like wolves ready to strike. Briggs, their leader, stepped forward the moment Eli appeared. He was a large man with a scar across his cheek and a permanent smirk carved into his face. He mocked Eli openly, calling him foolish, weak, and broke. He sneered at Eli's statement that the twins now carried his name, a protective claim, not as wives, but as family under his guardianship. Briggs laughed, telling him that a nothing cowboy had no authority over tribal customs or outlaw agreements. But Eli didn't raise his voice. He didn't step back. He calmly explained that no agreement made through fear or force had honor. And if Briggs believed the twins were still bound to him, he would have to argue it through law or through a bullet. The twins then spoke, explaining the truth behind the forced match, their escape, and the violation of peace. Their courage stirred the elders, who began to question the validity of the outlaw claim. Angered by losing control of the narrative, Briggs demanded a duel. If Eli won, the claim on the girls would be dissolved forever. If he lost, the twins would be taken immediately. Eli accepted, not because he wanted bloodshed, but because there was no other path left. The circle cleared. The crowd held its breath. The sun blazed overhead as the two men faced off. Briggs drew first, fast and reckless, but Eli moved with calm precision. One shot rang out, and Briggs' gun spun from his hand as he fell to one knee, shocked. Eli had disarmed him without killing him. The silence that followed felt endless. Peace did not come quietly after the duel. Eli Barrett knew the outlaws nursed their wounds with grudges, and men like Briggs never stayed humiliated for long. Yet despite the danger, he brought the Apache twins back to his ranch, a lonely stretch of land where the wind whispered through broken fence posts and the earth cracked under too much sun. The house was small and weather-worn, with a porch that leaned like an old man resting on a cane. But when the twins stepped inside, they felt something unexpected. It wasn't wealth or comfort. It was safety. It was the feeling of entering a place where no one demanded anything from them. A place where their names were not bargaining chips. For the first time in their lives, the world seemed to slow down. Naya threw herself into helping with ranch work, surprising Eli with her natural skill. She rode with confidence, guiding cattle with sharp whistles and bold commands. Her fierce personality fit the open range. She seemed born for the saddle. Naya, quieter but equally capable, tended the garden, fixed tools, and brought gentle order to the chaos Eli had lived with for years. She patched shirts, mended harnesses, and brewed herbs that soothed Eli's aching hands after long days. Watching them settle in, Eli felt something warm growing in his chest, a sense of belonging he had never allowed himself to imagine. Days stretched into weeks, and the ranch slowly transformed. Laughter replaced silence. The smell of cooked meals filled the evenings instead of dust. Sometimes after chores, the three of them sat by the fire outside, listening to the land breathe. Naya teased Eli about his stubbornness, calling him the poor rancher with the richest heart. Naya often watched him quietly, her gratitude unspoken but unmistakable. Eli never claimed them as anything but family. To him, blood meant little in a world where kindness was rarer than rain. But not everyone saw it that way. One evening, just as the sun dipped behind the hills, masked settlers rode toward the ranch. They accused Eli of betraying his own people by protecting Apache women. They demanded he send the twins away or face consequences. Eli stood on the porch, rifle at his side but pointed down, refusing to abandon the sisters he had sworn to protect. The twins stepped forward beside him, refusing to hide behind the man who had risked everything for them. Before the confrontation could ignite, silhouettes appeared on the ridge, Apache warriors silently watching, weapons ready. The settlers froze, realizing Eli had earned respect from both sides of a land that rarely agreed on anything. They turned back angry, but unwilling to start a fight they would lose. That night, sitting by the fire, Naya told Eli he had saved more than their lives. He had saved their spirits. Naya added softly that offering his name had given them a place they never thought they would have again. Eli looked at them with quiet humility and said they owed him nothing.